Now, the German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has described the severing of two fiber-optic cables under the Baltic Sea as an act of sabotage. Now, according to media reports, the Danish Navy was shadowing a Chinese cargo ship that left the Baltic after the telecommunications cables were cut. Pistorius says the damage appeared deliberate and could represent an act of hybrid warfare.
Undersea cables like this one are critical for carrying communications between countries. The apparent sabotage on Monday morning hit the Sea Lion 1 cable that runs under the Baltic between the German port city of Rostock and the Finnish capital Helsinki. Officials from Finland and Germany have said the incident was very unlikely to be accidental.
Nobody believes that these cables were cut by mistake. I don't believe the theory that it was anchors that accidentally caused damage to these cables. So we have to conclude, without knowing exactly who did it, that it was a hybrid action. And we must also assume, without knowing it, of course, that it is sabotage.
The foreign ministers of Germany, France, Poland, Italy, Spain and the UK said Moscow's escalating hybrid activities against NATO and EU countries are unprecedented in their variety and scale, creating a significant security risk. This comes just one day after a similar underseas cable between Sweden and Lithuania was damaged. That cut Lithuania's internet capacity by 1/3. Similar incidents in Africa have caused internet blackouts in the past. There are many more such cables in the seas around Europe. Authorities in the region are on high alert.
And we can get more on this from Kadri Liik, a senior policy fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations. Kadri, let's assume that this was sabotage. Tell us about the benefits of disrupting communication networks. How does this help whoever's done it?
Well, if it is Russia behind it, as many people suspect, then that would probably be messaging. I mean, for Russia, it is a dangerous moment in its war in Ukraine. They are advancing, but there are ceasefire proposals on the horizon. So Moscow would obviously want to push the West to agree to a ceasefire in Moscow's terms. And it can hope that President Trump might come close to that, but it is quite clear that European countries have different views. So in that context, I would take that as a signaling that don't try to push your terms on us, you are vulnerable.
OK. And what about the consequences? I mean, what kind of disruption does this create for both people and governments?
Well, internet cables, there are, of course, backups. So for now, I don't think anything dramatic has happened. But always such things create problems. You need to send crews to repair it. You need to have spare capacity. And certain things are actually harder to repair than others. I mean, gas pipelines, it can take a long while. And that can then already push up gas prices. So these are problematic things in any case, even if the immediate effect is not so dramatic.
So if we are possibly going to see more of this kind of sabotage, I mean, is there enough protection for undersea infrastructure under current international law?
I am not sure. I don't think you can ever have enough protection. I mean, there are so many cables. How do you guard them effectively? Do you have crews of guards? Where? I mean, cables are long. It's hundreds of kilometers. So it is hard to do in any case. What you could do, I mean, you could try to attribute the incidents. Naming and shaming can have some deterrence effect in the future, but also attributing has ups and downs. Not always it is so clear who is the culprit. And at other times, attributing actually can tell people a lot about how you found out. you're showing your own tools and skill sets that maybe you do not always want to show. And of course, the sad aspect is that democratic countries cannot really reply in kind. I mean, Russia has underwater infrastructure too, China has too, but it's not in the character of our countries to think that, okay, let's go and do some sabotage there. So in that sense, we are in a weaker position, inevitably.
It does sound like it really is quite a vulnerable system. NATO has launched a maritime centre to protect undersea infrastructure. But, I mean, you know, the question begs to be asked, what can NATO do to improve the security of critical undersea cables, given the obvious vulnerability?
Yes, indeed. And that's a question to me, too. I mean, certain things you probably can do. There are electronic surveillance mechanisms. I assume that we can improve it a little bit, but the 100% safety, I do not see how one could achieve.
Mm-hmm. The majority of undersea cables are owned by private companies. I mean, should governments, do you think, be taking greater control to increase the level of safety here?
I think so, because but even if it is privately owned, it is critical infrastructure nonetheless. So it is quite evident that governments should take an interest, and it speaks to public-private partnerships. I think that is one thing that can be done. We can actually improve a lot the collaboration between different institutions that are involved. Because, if a cable gets hurt, then parties involved are private enterprise, telecom firms, coast guards, military, security services, you name it. And not all of them are accustomed to talking to each other. So I think communication and actually exercises that prepare for accidents, that is something we can do to protect ourselves.
Kadri Liik, Senior Fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations. Kadri, thank you very much.